And they were going to tell us about that. Yeah.
Now, Joan is going to.
I think he's dead.
Yeah, pretty much what you heard.
I think he pooped out on my trial, which of course I found out.
Still think tonight.
Okay, folks, it's 4:30. I'd call the meeting to order, please.
I'm sitting there for 10 minutes.
For public information, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the east wall of the Commissioners' room. Roll call, please.
Meyer,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Knapper,
Here.
Reisig,
Here.
Blue,
Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What are you up to?
Do we have any changes or modifications to the agenda?
the biggest changes is who's representing what's on the agenda. So, he'll introduce himself, right?
Or you're talking about, okay.
Just, I've got a couple of items on the agenda, and the people that were supposed to be here will not, but they have somebody in their place.
We can discuss that when we get to that on the agenda then, okay? Board, do you have any changes, modifications? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Harris,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes. Move on to the consent agenda. Anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion for approval as presented.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Knapper,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes. Need a motion to move into Board of Equalization?
I'd move we go into the Board of
Is
Equalization.
there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Harris,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes. First item is receive the tax list corrections. I believe they were passed around. I have a motion to approve as presented. I just need one.
I'd move approval of the
Thank you.
tax list corrections as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Harris,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Next item, discuss, consider real property exemption for the better senior living. Angie,
Hello.
how are you this evening?
Good. How are you guys?
Wait, may I call her?
Please.
Who are we talking to?
Aaron Robach, the attorney for VSL. This is Aaron. Hi, Aaron. This is Angie Kelly and the Scotts Bluff County Board of Commissioners calling on your permissive exemption application. And we'll turn it over to Chairman Meyer. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening.
We have an app.
Thank you for letting me appear telephonically. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. We are discussing the exemption for the Better Senior Center, and I'll let you go first on it, Aaron.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Aaron Robach, and our law firm represents Better Senior Living, and I assisted the facility in filing the exemption application, so that's why I'm here talking with you today. So just as a little background, it may be helpful to have an understanding of the structure of the facility. So This facility is operated as a licensed nursing home in Gearing, which you may very well be aware of. And since the end of 2021, it has been owned by VSL Gearing LLC. Prior to that, it was owned by another entity that was a for-profit entity. And beginning in, I believe it was back in 2018, the owners of the Vetter facilities decided that for longevity purposes to hopefully continue the facilities kind of as a succession planning structure, decided to begin transitioning facilities to a nonprofit corporation. And so there were some facilities that were transferred earlier, and this facility it was transferred in December of 2021. And so the ownership structure is the VSL Gearing LLC's sole member is Vetter Senior Living. Vetter Senior Living is a nonprofit corporation. The Vetter Senior Living has received its 501c3 exemption from the Internal Revenue Service, so it's exempt from taxation at the federal level. And because of that, because of the transfer of ownership to a nonprofit corporation and the way the facility has been operating and has certainly been operating since the change of ownership, it's established in Nebraska, and it's been established going back to the 1960s, that a nursing home facility that's operated on a nonprofit basis is entitled to property tax exemption. Over the last few years, we've been filing exemptions in other counties when the change of ownership occurred, and currently I believe there's 15 other facilities where Vetter Senior Living has received tax exemption because now that the entity is a nonprofit corporation, which means that there cannot be any profit to any members or owners. It all goes back into the facility that under the law that entitles them to the exemption, and that is the reason for filing the application, and that's kind of the reason for the change. So I know to some counties it was kind of a surprise, well, what changed? Well, there was a significant change in that this is no longer a for-profit corporation. And as explained in the application, there's some other kind of tests to look at as to when a facility is entitled to property tax exemption, and the case law and the administrative code looks at, well, are you operating for charitable purposes? And here, the fact that they're providing health care to individuals who have other health issues or are aged, that they require certain medical care, that's a charitable purpose. And then the fact that this facility, and I believe all of Vetter's facilities, are 100% Medicaid certified, which means that they're not turn-away residents because of ability to pay, and they're not pre-screening residents. So they are accepting people, and on Medicaid residents, they're losing money on those residents. So for those reasons, that is the reason why they're entitled to the tax exemption. So I don't have anything further, but I'm happy to answer questions if you should have any questions about the application. And again, thank you for letting me appear telephonically.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. One question, you said Vetter has how many facilities in Nebraska?
It's 15, I believe.
And each of those, and I am assuming they're located in different counties, is that correct?
They are, yes.
And
there may be some carryover. I know, for example, in Boxview County, they have a nursing home facility and then a separate assisted living facility. So both of those facilities have received tax exemption. But by and large, the 15, we're probably talking 14 different counties that they've received tax exemption.
okay, thank you. This question would be for Angie. What makes this center any different than those 15 that we just discussed, Angie?
It really doesn't. My recommendation was for a partial exemption covering the skilled nursing portion of it, but the independent living facilities would remain taxable.
That's the other houses on the
The
other.
cottages.
The cottages, gotcha. Are you applying for those also?
We don't dispute that. Our
Okay.
intention, because of the way this is, the parcel, it's all, the nursing home and the independent living are all on the same parcel. So we're just asking for for exemption on the nursing home facility, and the property that's used in connection with the nursing home. So we would need to separate out those independent living structures.
By square footage or whatever method you're going to use, is that correct?
There's another county, I believe
Okay.
it's North Platte, where we had to do that same thing, and I think the assessor there just determined the square footage of the independent living units, and then, that part is taxed, but the rest is entitled to exemption.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
According to what I read, last month, I think your assets were $8 million on that property that was taxed.
Did you hear the question, Aaron?
I did not, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
I said, what I'd read last month at the last meeting, when I was presented, your assets on the facility are over $8 million.
Did you hear it this time, Aaron?
Right.
Okay.
That may be, I don't know the answer to that. As to what the value is.
Well, if you have an $8 million asset, how can you claim that you have no tax? I mean, you'd still I think you'd still have a tax liability on that with that amount of property.
But if what she's saying is she's a 501c3 nonprofit.
Well, then they wouldn't, if they're a nonprofit, they wouldn't mind just signing those assets over to the county when they sell out, would they?
Dream on. Good idea, though. Go ahead, Aaron.
I understand the concern, and I don't know how to explain it other than just to reiterate that, I mean, it is clear under the case law, and this has been litigated previously over, concerns about this, but when a long-term facility, regardless of the value of the asset, is operated on a nonprofit basis where there's not, excess revenue going to owners or other individuals, but it's going back to the facility to benefit those that are in need of the long-term care, that is what qualifies the facility for the tax exemption.
Angie, does that make any difference as far as this request is concerned, what they're?
The valuation isn't a factor. It's whether or not they meet not only being a nonprofit organization, but the other parts to the test.
Okay.
And she answered all of the questions that we would have asked in advance, and quoted case law to back each one of them up. If you compared it to the local hospital, it wouldn't even make a dent in the valuation for that. And they are also nonprofit and exempt.
Aaron, this is Commissioner Knapper. Have you protested this property at Turk? At the state level?
Right, so for this particular facility, the exemption application for last year was denied, and so we did file a Turk appeal, and that's currently sitting with the Turk, but we haven't been provided a date for hearing on that, but that is before the Turk. We did have some other counties when we initially filed exemption applications. I think we had 2 counties that denied it, and there were Turk appeals, and ultimately we ended up providing sufficient information that those were resolved, and we received confessions of judgment on those.
Aaron, this is Ken again. When did you become a nonprofit?
This facility was in December of 2021. So before 2022 tax year, it looks like it was conveyed on December 10th of 2021.
So the denial that you're discussing was prior to this turning into a 501c3, is that correct?
Well, so the denial related to 2022 taxes, so it would have been after it was transferred to the nonprofit, and then this application is for 2023, obviously.
We're just
Okay.
collecting 2022s right now, aren't we?
You apply for the exemption in advance, so yes,
So
the
Ed-
2022
Yes, we
tax
did
bill
apply
was
for the-
generated.
We applied for the exemption, well, I think we applied for the exemption right after it was conveyed, before the end of the year in 21 for 22, because it did get transferred to the nonprofit before the beginning of year in 2022.
So at
And
the,
to help clarify, I think what Ken is asking is, yes, you denied the application after they became a nonprofit organization.
when why,
Angie, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. I didn't catch your question or statement.
I think he was trying to clarify if their decision to deny the application was before or after you became a charitable organization.
Oh, okay.
And so I was
Okay.
explaining that yes, you were,
so if it was after, why would we deny it? Other than what information we received?
you received basically the exact same packet last year. There was no one here to represent them.
So why would you deny it?
My initial instinct was to deny it, but when it was presented to the board, I had an opportunity to look at the other facilities across the state and those Turk case laws that she quoted, and I didn't have an argument. So when it was presented to the board last year, I also recommended a partial exemption, but it was denied by the board, and they have appealed it to Turk.
So Turk hasn't settled on it yet, though.
No.
Wouldn't we wanna wait for that answer?
That would be a case I would have to fight and to try to win with the assistance of a county attorney.
And I think, Aaron, you said that the Turk so far has ruled in your favor on any of the cases that you've taken to them?
Well, we have not ended up, so with respect to, I mean, this has been litigated before, and so going back to the, the 1960s, Bethesda was the first nursing home organization to seek exemption, and there were Turk decisions related to that got appealed, and that now there's Supreme Court case law that says nursing homes that are operated in this manner are entitled to exemption. With respect to Vetter, we had received a few denials of counties that went to the Turk, but before we had an ultimate hearing before the Turk, those were resolved. So with respect to Vetter specifically, the Turk has not weighed in. There hasn't been a decision by Turk.
When you say resolved, does that mean that the county gave you the exemption?
They came to terms.
Correct,
before
yes.
it went to Turk.
Okay,
The county ultimately decided to allow the exemption
okay.
after the Turk filings.
So you didn't win in front of Turk, but you won the public opinion or at the assessor level.
Right, we were able to provide, I guess, sufficient information to the counties to satisfy them that we did meet the criteria for tax exemption under the law.
Right, and
So-
I think, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I think, Angie, the county assessor, is saying that she agrees with you, the new information,
After the initial
part of it.
review, I reached out to Box Butte, North Platte, Douglas County, and actively questioned their cases and
Sure.
the questions that were asked and the discoveries that were offered. And it changed my opinion for last year also.
All right, and so the recommendation is from you that they be tax exempt on the nursing facility, but they would be taxed on the cottage facilities.
Correct.
Okay, that's your recommendation, okay? All right. I would entertain a motion to either approve or disapprove the recommendation from the assessor
Or approve a partial.
for approval,
Approval of partial.
partial.
So if they were to pay their tax bill and then Turk was to come back and say they're 100% exempt or they're partial exempt, we would have to refund that money at that time.
Correct.
We need to start it on 2023, I think, don't we? I mean, we've already budgeted, that money was in our budget and spent.
I don't think state statute allows us to.
I'm not sure that we can do that.
So what kind of
So-
motion do we need?
To follow and pursue this and continue to have it denied, we would have to present a case to the Turk Board on why we feel that they should be taxed rather than nonprofit.
I don't think they're saying that. I think they're all saying that we need to do the exemption. The question is,
When does
what
it
year
start?
is it effective?
Well,
Right now, we're
Tur-
discussing 2023, but 2022 is also on the table.
2022's on the table, but it was in Turk, so we assumed that it was gonna be taxed, and so it's been in our that money's in our budget. Yes, you've taxed that money out.
Yes.
That money has been taxed, and so it's already in our budget to be spent for 2022, and where will you make that back from? You're gonna put it in 2023 and take it from everybody else?
Unfortunately, that's not a factor the Turk Board would consider.
Well, we were involved with Turk. Turk hasn't made a ruling in 2022, so as far as I'm concerned, we wouldn't start until 2023, right?
My
And this
understanding,
is-
they made the ruling on 2022, correct?
No, you've made a ruling. and
We
it's-
made,
it's
we made,
pending.
we made the ruling that they
And
were
it's
exempt in
pending.
twenty
Pending at
twenty-two.
Turk.
And Russ, your concern is a concern that's felt all across the state, and there's actually legislation in the unicameral right now to address that. Requiring Turk to hear cases on a more timely manner
Yeah.
because counties are running into this.
Yeah, they're a
across
year
the
or two
state.
behind on a lot of that stuff. Okay. All right, again, I would ask for entertaining motion
Well,
to approve.
we gotta pick a year first, all right, where we're gonna start.
Right now, we're discussing 2023 only.
Okay.
2023.
I would entertain a motion for approval of the exemption of the nursing center only for
Correct.
2023.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that on 2023.
Is there any discussion? Further discussion? Clerk call the roll.
Harris,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Knapper,
No.
Blue,
Yes.
Motion's carried. Aaron, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
But 2022 is not on.
Thank you, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, need a motion to come out of Board of Equalization?
I'll move to come out of Board of Equalization.
hit the phone button again. They don't give me a chance to do
You
stuff.
just call,
I don't know how to use this phone.
Unplug it.
somebody help her.
I feel like a 5-year-old. I've never just shut it off.
Somebody help her. John?
Yes, they just need to give me time to do things and they don't.
You just need to be quicker, Kelly.
Anything there?
I can't be writing down who moved to come out of Board of Equalization.
I did.
Is there a
Who
second?
was the second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk call the roll.
Knapper,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Move into general agenda item. First item is discuss, consider the action on the DHS building sale. With that, I would move that the county board go into executive session with Phil Kelly, Lisa Ryan, and the board to discuss the offer and potential counteroffer of the county for the purchase of the DHS building from interested buyers. That it is necessary to protect the public interest and that strategy sessions concerning negotiations of the purchase price are clearly authorized under the Nebraska Open Meetings Act.
That was a motion.
I would entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Call the roll, please.
Harris,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Okay, we'll go into executive session 4:53. I did, just how you wrote it here. Oh, I just read what you gave me, Mr. Kelly. Okay, I need a motion to return to regular session at 5:15.
I'll move to return to regular session.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Harris?
So, I'd like to mention that we have had, and received, another offer on the DHHS building. And, I'd like to move that we would direct our attorney, Phil Kelly, to continue negotiations concerning this offer and report back to the commissioners as soon as possible.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Or call the roll, please.
Harris,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Phil. Next item is, receive presentation from, it says Brian Jordy regarding the casino horse track racetrack, but, Brian Becker is here also, is going to assist with all of that. Brian is the racetrack side of the whole operation. So, we're gonna be on a call with him, with Brian Jordy? Okay. John, can you give her a hand? What do we need to do here? Thank you. So he wasn't able to get on here that we can see him, is that correct?
We wouldn't be able to get the recording.
Hello?
Brian?
Yes.
Hi, it's Kelly Sides, Scotts Bluff County Clerk, and here's your phone call. We're trying to get hooked up to the Zoom, but it's not a guarantee, and I am going to turn it over to our chairman, Ken Meyer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brian, how are you?
And Brian's here.
Yep, good evening.
Good. I will turn it back to you. You can start your presentation. Brian Becker is also here in the room with us in live person. And so however you guys want to do. Oh, I see it. We see a picture. Hang on
Oh,
here.
can you see me?
Not quite.
Okay, super. If you can see me, then that's great. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and, just run through a few slides here.
Okay, hang on,
And
hang
I'll be available
Hang
for
on,
questions.
hang on just a second, Brian. We've got our IT guys trying, there we go. Now we got you.
Perfect.
Can you see us?
All right, let me share.
No, you can't.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, hopefully you can see an image of some buildings on the screen there, I hope.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, well, my name is Brian Jordy, and a lawyer out of Omaha, and I really appreciate the opportunity to appear remotely and for that courtesy. As was mentioned, Brian Becker is in the audience there with you tonight, and we just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of let you know where we're at and introduce ourselves to those of you that may not be familiar, but we're here tonight on behalf of Prairie Thunder Gearing LLC, a Nebraska company, and Scotts Bluff Exposition and Racing Inc., a nonprofit Nebraska company. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but the nonprofit is for horse racing and maintaining a license in the state for horse racing, and then the Prairie Thunder Gearing would be for gaming activities and owning and holding the real estate where we hope to have a project in your community. So you have a packet and some information there, so hopefully it's kind of self-evident what our goals are, but that is to construct a racetrack, horse racetrack, quarter horses, and casino, approximately 40,000 square foot, along with the 10,000 or so square foot administrative building, ancillary support buildings, and state-of-the-art barns for horse racing, and then ultimately also a hotel and other complementary facilities. So just want to talk a little bit about the project, and so this is something that is, there are proposals around the state right now, and we've got an application in for Scotts Bluff County. And most communities are really excited about this prospect. For instance, in Columbus, Platte County, they've talked about it being a huge addition to the community and a once-in-a-generation type opportunity, and we feel the same. We feel the same because of the tax revenue and the multiplier effect it can have on communities, as well as the fact that they will be very limited in number, and for good reason. You don't want these facilities everywhere, and you want the ones that we do have to be able to compete and do what they're meant to do. And also from the racetrack side, we want to be able to make sure we have enough horses to put on So back in November 3rd of 2020, there was a ballot initiative that you're familiar with. There's 3 of them, all in conjunction and related. They were to allow, authorize, regulate, and importantly tax gaming at licensed racetracks. So the prerequisite is to have and hold a license from the Nebraska Racing and Gaming Commission for a racetrack. And then from there, the next step would be a gaming operator license. In Scotts Bluff County, you can see that the measures passed from 59.4% up to 63.5%. So overwhelmingly popular and desired. Currently, we have in the state, there are 6 issued racing licenses, and those have been around for decades. And you can see them there, one in Hastings, Adams County, and then we've got Paul County, Grand Island, Platte County, Columbus, Lancaster County, Lincoln, Douglas County, Omaha, and then Dakota County, South Sioux City. And you can see there I've got 100 Meridian, and that's on purpose because right now there's some legislation proposed that would restrict new development of casino racetracks east of that line, so where the 6 existing are currently, but it would open up the availability to compete for those licenses in the western half of the state. Right now, of course, we were one of the first, I think we were the first, right after the election to get to work and get land under contract in Scotts Bluff County, just outside of the Gering city limits specifically, and get an application in. There's an application in for Lincoln County, North Platte specifically, Keith County for Ogallala, and I don't believe they've submitted an application yet, but there is talk and prospects of a Kimball application. And so we think that these 4 will be the ones competing for most likely 2 licenses that can be issued for the western half of the state. So when we zoom in a little bit more, and again, we think there are likely going to be 2. We, of course, selected Scotts Bluff community because we think it's the best, the most appropriate, the furthest away from the existings, the most likely one that would be granted. And also given we're a quarter course racetrack, and the others right now proposed are all thoroughbreds. Most of the quarter horses in Nebraska, of course, in western Nebraska, and there's over 80,000, believe it or not all registered and ready to race, but a significant amount of interest, and also into Wyoming and then northern Colorado. So we think we have a competitive advantage for Scotts Bluff location specifically. We believe that if there's going to be 2, likely of these 4, that it would come down between Scotts Bluff and Kimball, and then Keith County or Lincoln County. And you can see Keith County and Lincoln are 54 miles apart. Unlikely there would be a racetrack and gaming facility that close in western Nebraska. So we think either Keith or Lincoln, and then either Scotts Bluff or Kimball. And so when we think about Scotts Bluff, and when we started this out, Kimball was an available community. We could have gone there because, again, we were first movers on this. So Mr. Becker had been in the racing industry and raising horses, racing them for over 2 decades now. And we selected your community because we think it's the best in western Nebraska. Scotts Bluff also has 11 times roughly the population of Kimball, more infrastructure, more access to employment, and we think better opportunities to pull interest and out-of-state tax dollars in from Wyoming and also Colorado. So the track itself is going to be located just out of the city limits of Gering, just on the south of Gering there. And we've acquired land, approximately 140 acres. Let's see, yes. And it's divided by the expressway. So the main piece there is right around 105 acres, and then across the expressway there, we've got another piece, approximately 35 acres. We are committed to the community and committed to Scotts Bluff and Gering. We purchased the ground already, so we've got over $1 million investment in the ground. and are eager to keep pushing this forward, and we're frankly just waiting on the Racing Gaming Commission to determine when they want to make a decision on these projects. Site plan here, we lay it out to maximize the area. We've been in talks with the City of Gering and Twin Cities Development and others about the need for housing, and so we've been working with developers and thinking of the best ways to go about that, and have left approximately 5 acres in the northern portion there in that pink rectangle for future multifamily housing. Then we have the parking, the casino there, and racetrack, of course, and barns and areas for the horses and the trailers. And then in the bottom left, you can see carve out for future commercial retail. That's approximately 21 acres. And of course, space for a hotel as well to complement the facility. And this is simply an overlay onto the actual aerial of the property. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there is a carve out there. And the original owner, the Helzer family, who we negotiated this sale with, donated that portion of the property for a therapeutic riding organization. And we think that dovetails in really great for the community, for the kids, to be able to ride those horses and have exposure around the track and participate in different events we're going to do. So there's a lot of synergies at that location. Aside from obviously racing, we think it's going to be a great draw for families in the community, not only to be around the horses and jockeys and understand about that industry and kind of be a part of it, but also to have family Sundays where it is a family event that everyone can come out there. For racing, there isn't an age limit like a casino, and it's really for the whole family, along with fun events for Kentucky Derby and things like that. Also, we envision having, food truck and food festivals that complement other events in town. We would not schedule any of our events when the other major events are occurring. We want to bring and keep more people in the community, and not cannibalize from other events. And obviously, we'd be free to schedule and do that in conjunction with the county and the City of Gering. So, jobs and economic multiplier, what's this all about? It's a significant economic development, and all in is going to be well north of 50 million, and with hotel, and once it's fully developed, would be in the 90 million range. We're projecting between 4.25 to 4.5 million in new annual payroll once we're fully up and running. That's about 150 plus new jobs. 60% of those would be part-time jobs available for folks that maybe want a second income in the family or just additional hours. Run at about 5 daily shifts, 3 8-hour shifts, and then 2 swing shifts, again, for those who want to supplement their income and pick up some work when they can. Typically draw from about 60-mile radius for employees. And a unique thing about our project there in the Scotts Bluff community is that we open it up for local investment. So up to approximately 20% of the dollars can be invested by folks, residents of Scotts Bluff County. So unlike some of the other ones most all of them other than Grand Island aren't doing this, we really want this to be a win-win for the whole community and even have folks participate if they want to be a part of it that way. So the big thing, new tax revenue and relief. This is all statutory. It's not our made-up numbers. There's an annual gaming tax on each gaming facility, and that's 20% of casino GGR. And GGR means gross gaming revenue. So not like on your personal taxes where you have your income and then you have certain write-offs or deductions. We are taxed on the gross, and that's great. No complaints. So 20% of the gross is the tax, and then that tax is split down, as you see there, and broken down with 70% of that 20% going to the property tax credit cash fund. And we estimate that the contribution from this facility will be pushing $7 million per year, every year, which goes directly back to property tax relief, which is, again, is the main reason why these ballot initiatives were passed in the first place. And then importantly for you and approximately 1.2 million per year, every year, for as long as obviously the business is there. We hope that's, of course, many, many, many decades. And then the city of Gearing would also receive that same 12.5%. And so you're looking at a significant infusion of tax dollars into the community that obviously you can use for other projects that are desirable for your community. So with that, I'll stop sharing, and that was kind of a big picture rundown. I've got more slides or information that's any questions you might have, but the ask of you tonight is pretty simple and straightforward, and I've provided Kelly a memorandum of understanding and then a resolution that simply mirrors that memorandum. And as you can see how we do things, it's very straightforward, one page, just get to the point, and it's this. We currently have over $1.5 million invested in the community. We're very serious about this. We are not Johnny-come-latelys. We've been working diligently for 3 years now. When we knew these initiatives were going to be up on the ballot in 2020, and we're serious about the community. We want Scotts Bluff County to get this. We frankly want Scotts Bluff to beat out Kimball, which I think is the competition here. And in order to do that and continue to make the investments, we're simply asking that for your support and to support us in our mission to get this done and over the finish line. And that's the whole point of why we're here tonight. We really like you to be on board. We have the necessary approvals already from Gearing to develop both the racetrack and the gaming facility and ancillary facilities. And so really we would like your support, and we're just looking at the commission to try to get this done once and for all. So with that, I will stop, and any questions at all, please feel free to ask.
Charlie, go ahead.
Brian, this is Commissioner Charlie. Can you pull up that last slide you had?
Yep, hold on. I sure will. Let me go back to the Zoom. Let me share my screen again and share. All right, hopefully you can see it there.
So my question is just a point of clarification that 70% property tax, 70% of the 20% would go to property tax credit cash fund. That's a statewide fund, correct? That's not a county fund.
That's a fair point. And then I think it turns to your state senators of how much they can claw back from that, given that you're the county that's generating it. But that is true. It goes into the state fund. Of course, you all know rural folks and farm and ag land are a disproportionate amount of the tax burden, and so we're certainly hopeful a lot of those dollars find their way back to the community.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Blue. I have a question. You have a 2.5% for Gamblers Assistance Fund. Could you explain that?
Yes, and again, so these are right out of state laws. These aren't things that we're saying we'll do. This is, we have to do this to be in compliance. And the state, when they passed this, they wanted to make sure that there was some funds set aside for the small amount of folks that will frankly have an issue with this. And so that money goes towards the hotline, towards the list that you can self-report, so that if you have an issue with gambling, that you will not be allowed in, and maintenance of that, and for staff and personnel there. And then education overall about the importance, to be smart with these type of entertainment dollars. So that also is a state fund that all the facilities will pay into.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a few comments,
Let me ask
if you're
you.
ready, yeah.
Did you get a copy of this, Dave?
Yep.
Okay, you're okay with it?
Yeah.
So, Brian, this is Mark Harris. So a couple things that I'm understanding. So although this is not in the city limits at this point, it would be annexed into the city of Gearing and be part of the city limits there. The infrastructure would go through the city of Gearing, but my understanding primarily paid for by the developer. Would that be true?
100%, yes, sir, 100% paid for by the developer. We're not requesting TIF or assistance. I mean, we happily take it, but it's frankly, it's not needed. These projects should stand on their own, and so you're exactly right with the comments you've made.
Okay. And then law enforcement would be the same, and that's if it's part of the city of Gearing, that the city of Gearing would ultimately be technically responsible for it, but I know we all work together, and, I mean, no matter what, when we have crowds of people, we have extra law enforcement things, but we would work as much together as possible, and you would work with City of Gearing for the very specific law enforcement needs, I'm sure.
100% correct, and of course, we would have 24-hour surveillance, our own security staff, both obviously in premise and around the premises, but of course, would work with the city and the county to make sure it's a safe facility for all.
Sure. And ultimately, again, this would be in the Gearing city limits, and so they would be dealing with any and all zoning issues, special permits, and all those things. And, it'll be in their jurisdiction. We won't be dealing with any of those things, from a county perspective, the way I see it.
I agree with that, and again, the way the law is drafted, it's actually a very nice deal for Scotts Bluff County, because of course, we want you involved, but the responsibility, as you laid out, really is the city, but the county can still be the beneficiary to the tax revenue.
Right. So, are you saying, I was thinking that I haven't, seen the city of Gearing have have this information on any of their agendas where they approved the resolution or the memorandum of understanding. Have they already approved that?
So, the city of Gearing, so we've been at this a while, and we got our approvals through them over a year and a half ago now, and so we've gotten the zoning approvals and the approvals necessary to construct the facility. So our approvals with them happened over a year and a half ago.
This specific resolution that we got today, have they signed something the same or similar to that?
We have not put that before them, given that we believe we have all the approvals we need from them, and since, as you point out, the county is a beneficiary but doesn't directly have to be involved, that's why we thought we'd come to the county now, and especially after we've closed on the land, have the investment, and are, wanting to supercharge this effort.
Sure. I certainly appreciate what you've done so far, the steps that you've taken. I do believe, I guess, kind of just the opposite in the sequence of things, that I think that we're a secondary beneficiary, in my opinion, and that if the city of Gearing has approved these the resolution memorandum of understanding, then I think it's appropriate for us to consider them as well. But at this point, my personal opinion is maybe they should be first and not us, but that's just a thought at this point. I have learned more about Mr. Becker and his organization and what he does in Hastings over the last few days, but before that, I really was not aware of exactly who the ownership was, and certainly what I've heard so far has been good things. One of the concerns that I had on the memorandum of understanding is, one of the sentences says that the county further agrees to exclusively support the effort of SBER and PTG in pursuit of such licenses for the Scotts Bluff County-based facility, and agreed to send letters of support to the commission. And I wonder if that's appropriate for us at this point. This is the first time that this stuff has come to us, and I'm, I guess, wanting at some point for and I understand the city of Gearing might have this on the agenda on Monday, but, I mean, I'd love for the city of Gearing to say all that stuff first, and then we could ride on the shirt tails of that, rather than us being first, but that's an opinion of mine. We'll see if the others agree or not.
And,
Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, I just was gonna briefly address that, but please continue.
Well, and then I've discussed with you previously, and most of the commissioners that are up here and many in the audience already know that I generally have not been the advocate or the cheerleader for gambling type things, but I've also generally not stood in the way. And this was put to the voters and in Scotts Bluff County approved, as you said, by a 60-40 margin, basically. And because of that, my intention would not to be to stand in the way, but to be supportive to the extent that my concern would be is if it went to Kimball or any other location close to us, that we would end up with some of the same problems or issues, but not benefit from any of the financial benefit. And because of that, it makes me more likely to support it as well. So I think I do appreciate the part that goes to the I call it Gamblers Anonymous, but it's not that. But anyway, the gambling assistance fund. Certainly, some of this creates some difficulties for some families, and I've been involved firsthand with some issues, family issues that crept up shortly after the Keno was initiated here locally, and some of that stuff is real, and it affects some people. I hope it's minimal, and I feel better that there's an assistance fund set up to deal with some of those things. So I know that we have Mayor Ewing's in the audience, and Pat Heath, the city administrator from Gearing, is in the audience, and maybe others, but that's my thought in general, is that the city of Gearing should take the lead on this more than we do, and we want to be supportive in the things that they've put together and kind of negotiated with you. But I'd like to hear it from them rather than just from you guys.
Charlie?
Sure,
All right.
absolutely. If I could just take 30 seconds on that. Everything you said makes sense. Given that because of the location that we didn't have to by any ordinance come to the county, that's why we're coming now in second place. And the fact that we already have the Gearing approvals that we need to go forward, I don't think we need something similar to what we're proposing, but because we kind of want to solidify essentially the relationship with the county and get everyone on the same page, and so that's what I came up with. And I didn't invent the idea. Keith County signed something virtually identical with the development team behind that proposed facility, so there's some precedent for it as well.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate the fact that you have brought it to us at this point and keeping us apprised as to the developments and what's happening, and again, who's involved and what's happening, and I think that's good. That's all I have.
Earlier, somebody had mentioned about I'm not sure, I don't know that we've ever met or whatever the case might be. I've attended 2, possibly 3, I'm not sure how many presentations were out here since the inception of all of this. And I can tell you on a personal basis, I'm very impressed with the organization. I'm very impressed with what they're going to bring to the county, into the state. What I've seen in both the presentations and other things that I've done in my research, it's first-class operation, and which I think is very, very important. We're not going to have I think I told Brian, we're not going to have a tent out here or a steel building or whatever the case might be. It's going to be a very attractive, and I know as all the things that we do through the tourism group, trying to make this a destination area, this would really, really help in that particular area. I'm not a big gambler, but you know, the fact is, I probably will go to it, but I don't have to. Yeah, I'm not a big drinker, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't support those that want to do the liquor licenses, which we do on a regular basis also. So, having said that, Charlie, I'll bring it over to you.
Brian, Commissioner Charlie again. Scotts Bluff County operates a Keno parlor and a Keno game throughout the county and within the city of Gearing city limits. I believe the revenue off that is around $800,000 a year, or if maybe, okay, closer to 600,000 maybe. Having a casino in the area would likely harm that Keno operation, especially the Keno parlor, where we also operate a restaurant and employ several people. Would Prairie Thunder Gearing be open to allowing County Keno to operate within their facilities?
You know, to be honest, we hadn't considered that. I certainly wouldn't say no. I would say that the folks, at least in my experience, that really enjoy Keno may or may not enjoy other things. So we think we're going to be pulling significantly from out of state, so folks that wouldn't necessarily travel into the community just to play Keno, but to come for a destination. But you've got a fair point, and we certainly wouldn't say no to that. I mean, we have to sit down and obviously have a little more talks about that, but to the extent there's synergies, that would make sense to us.
Okay, thanks. I would like to continue having this conversation throughout the process here. You know, if we could come to some sort of understanding, you know, maybe Keno's just available in your restaurant or in the horse track areas, or, you know, they don't need to be running numbers while they're playing slots at the same time. But if we could be out there in some capacity, that would be tremendous for us.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
That was my comment about Keno, what it was
Okay.
gonna do.
Dave, you looked at this. Do you have an issue with any of it?
Not at all.
Okay. Kent, you're in the audience. Would you like to add anything? You're okay. You're okay with everything. All right. But again, this is going to make or break the operation. All this is basically saying is that as Scotts Bluff County, we're on board with your efforts. If it happens, when it happens, we're okay with it, basically. Or at least this board. We can't speak for all 36,000 people that are out there, but at least this particular group is okay with what's going on with it. Okay. All right. So with that, I would entertain a motion. We'll move on to discuss and consider the MOU with the Scotts Bluff Exposition and Racing and Prairie Thunder Gearing.
Brian, this is Charlie again, if at any time Scotts Bluff Exposition and Racing and or Prairie Thunder were to dissolve their efforts here, could we be released from this MOU? And you know, we understand that this MOU is it asks for the it asks that we operate exclusively with you. Would that dissolve and we'd be able to work with anybody else?
It's 100%. I mean, it's really just, let's be in this together, and, there's a legislative session that'll end in June. I think you're gonna see a lot of activity in the next couple of months, once, for instance, this 100th Meridian perhaps becomes law. And so I don't anticipate this dragging on and on and on. And 100%, if we go forward and they say, no, we don't like you guys, or we don't like the community, I mean, then absolutely, then there's nothing to move forward. It's just kind of a show of good faith that we want to do our best efforts collectively.
Okay.
Brian, would you like to say or interject anything? He pretty much said what he did. You pretty much,
There's so much money that goes for drawings, and that's why we want some.
I just need, procedurally, I need name and address for our
Brian
record.
Becker, Brian Becker, Hastings, Nebraska. The biggest reason is there's a lot of money outflow on this just to get to this point. There's a lot of drawings, $1 million check gotta go to the State Racing Commission. We just want you on our side.
Just want everybody on board. Gotcha.
Brian, is the property been purchased and paid for at this
Yes.
point? It has, okay. That's,
That's public record.
well, I'm sure it is, I just,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Again, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I would motion that we enter into the MOU with Scotts Bluff Exposition and Racing and Prairie Thunder Gearing LLC.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Knapper,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes,
Harris,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes. Okay. You have a copy for me to sign?
this is the MOU.
Okay.
Kelly,
Very good. Okay.
Are they asking for this to be done as well? or-
That's what I just signed, was that resolution. I think.
what was
Kelly,
the
isn't that what I just signed, was just the resolution?
Enter into the MOU.
The MOU.
Oh, the MOU.
Resolution wasn't on the agenda.
That wasn't on the agenda. Okay, gotcha. Okay. So the MOU covers the same thing that's on the resolution, basically. Is that, hang on just a second, folks. What? The resolution is the same as what's on the MOU that we got? Is that correct?
I did not
Where did
compare
this
them.
come from?
That came from Brian Jordy today.
Okay.
This was what was in your packet. The memorandum of
Okay.
understanding was
So
in
we signed the
packet.
memorandum of understanding then?
Correct.
So we don't need to do anything with this resolution, Brian?
It's only if you think as a board, you also want to have a resolution. I just did it, just in case you wanted that, but the same thing.
It's the same thing. The MOU and this are basically same language, just a little bit longer then. Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Okay, very good. Brian, thanks for stopping in. Drive careful. You better get out of town before the storm hits.
Or hang out. Or hang out.
We'll play Keno.
Yeah, stop playing some Keno. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss Office 365. It's Chris Lind. Or I guess Chris isn't here.
Chris is not here. We've got Landon Clark.
Landon Clark from Bites is
Landon.
filling in for Chris.
Okay. You're on, buddy.
Hello.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right. So I'm Landon Clark, Director of Sales and Marketing at Bites. For those of you who don't know me, Chris asked me to stand in today and cover these two topics here on the agenda. So he had to take off for a trip to West Virginia to avoid the weather. That kind of came into play there. So he had to take off early and asked me to stand in here and gave me a quick briefing. So Office 365, that's a project that we have coming up. I believe it's in March, is when also get the Office package included with that, which you already have that portion. You have the Microsoft Business Apps portion, providing Office for all of the users on the network. We're just upgrading those licenses and adding the email portion to them. That will allow us to be able to eliminate the server that's physically here in the data center, and move that into the cloud, which is a more modern, secure location. So I know one of the topics that regarding that Chris wanted me to cover, there were some questions about potential savings, looking for funds for the website upgrade project that's still in talks. We ran some numbers and there would be some savings, but likely not enough to cover a website in its entirety. Essentially, the licenses that the county has right now, were paid up front annually. The new licenses that we would be upgrading to would be paid for monthly with a year commitment. That's the new NCP program that Microsoft has. So there would be a prorated credit applied for the 3 months there, because the term of those ends in June, I believe. And if we do this project in March, we'd be upgrading early, so there'd be a prorated credit there. And then, since we're not paying for it annually up front again, it would be monthly, that would leave over some extra money in this year's budget, or this budget term. And it would probably, or likely be around $25,000 to $30,000. So, it's a chunk, but it's not likely enough for a website. I think the initial quote that we got, it was maybe a year ago, was, that's a quarter of it for the website needs and things that were required for a new website. Right now, we're kind of shooting in the dark because we're still waiting on the RFP process to get quotes on what websites would cost. So it's hard to say how much that money would cover.
Lisa, do you remember how much that 365 piece was on the budget line?
I do not. I know I've been paying a monthly, a very small amount. I
Okay.
think you were talking about that, like either $150 or $300 a month.
When-
I thought it was for Office 365.
Yeah. When Chris had come to talk to us about the 365 project during budget time, we asked if that was one of those items on the budget that we thought we needed to chisel down. And there were some thoughts that we wouldn't need as many licenses and that kind of stuff. So that's where the cost savings is coming from, is back from a discussion we had back in July.
Right. And touching on that, I know there were some questions on whether, we could reduce that licensing down a little bit more, and not get the full-blown premium package, which includes Office and Exchange, all of the apps, and all of that. Maybe some users only need access online. They don't need the downloaded apps on their computer. That amount is, maybe $10 a user.
Okay.
So it would be very minor savings.
Okay. Okay. Were there any other topics Chris wanted to touch on besides 365?
For 365, I think that was it, unless there's any additional questions.
Okay. Then we'll move on to discuss and consider the approval of the courtroom technology upgrade. You're still on, Landon.
All right. So for this, you'll have to forgive me, I have little involvement with this project, but I understand it's a technology upgrade for the courtrooms that the state is helping to implement. This MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, is just a document stating that this document is letting the county know that the equipment will be yours and your responsibility. AOCP will provide a 5-year warranty and service plan, for upgraded equipment in the county courtrooms, which begins on the first of the month following the substantial completion and usage of the upgraded equipment. There is no payment of funds required for the transfer of ownership. There shall be no further monetary involvement. Just making sure that the county is the owner, understands that they're the owner of the equipment and responsible for it, for determining and acting upon all future needs for repair, maintenance, replacement, disposal. AOCP will not provide technical assistance or provide repair or maintenance for such equipment after the transfer of ownership occurs. Those are the main points. I assume you guys have this document. No?
Do we have the MOU?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it.
I
Okay.
sent you what I sent them.
Awesome, okay. So, it's pretty straightforward, the bullet points that are covered here. The state will be, as I said, supporting the equipment after the transfer of ownership. I was told there will be sort of an interim period there. Lights is gonna be here to help if, you need assistance in that area. We have been in talks with the state on exclusively with Bites, on figuring out how we can get better support in that area, because I know that their support, they have a difficult time supporting the entirety of the state. So they might be working with companies like ours to help supplement that, provide a higher level of service.
What is the AOCP?
So the AOCP is the Administrative Office of the Courts and Probation.
Okay. And they received, the technology that they're receiving and handing off to us, that's, all that equipment was suggested by the OCIO, the Office of the Chief Information Officer from the state?
I can't answer that, I don't
Okay.
know for sure.
I believe that's the case. The Office of the Chief Information Officer purchased this stuff that, picked out the hardware and the software that's gonna run this stuff. And then, no? Is that not true?
It would be the Supreme Court Information Technology Department,
Okay,
which probably falls underneath the OCIO, but it was picked up in the courts.
okay, okay.
The Chief Justice was actually talking about that this morning
Oh,
in the state of the, whatever they call it, not state of the state, but state of the court.
okay. Neat.
And had I been smart enough to figure out what he was talking about, cause he talked for quite some time about this issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it makes more sense now that you've heard it twice?
I'll get back with you on that.
This equipment, even though it's gonna it becomes our responsibility to replace and repair after they hand it off to us, does it still come with warranty, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But ultimately, they give it to us, they get us started, but ultimately, it's gonna become our responsibility at some point, which means with your help, your responsibility,
Correct.
but at some point, our financial responsibility.
Correct.
So,
This will have a 5-year warranty and service plan.
so is there additional cost from you guys to maintain this then?
So, not that I was told.
Okay,
So,
we'll take that as a no then. It'll be
Yeah.
on record.
My understanding is the state is
No.
supporting this and we're gonna work with them like we do for,
Okay,
in any of the other ways.
That's understandable.
Vendor.
That's understandable.
We're boots on the ground if they need help with that.
So it's no money out of our pocket unless we have to supplement what you're doing. Go ahead.
There is money out of the county pocket for a pool table and, some installation costs in each of the courtrooms. And across the state, Jennifer Rasmussen, who is heading this project, said it's averaging between $3,000 and $5,000.
That we would have to come up with to pull the wires. Is that something our maintenance people can do? Okay,
That was something, Jay said he does not have budgeted to do this, so we'll have to figure out how we're going to do it and when it has to be accommodated.
okay, thank you.
Didn't we earmark some COVID money, some ARPA money for these upgrades before we found out the state was providing the hardware?
I mean, we bought all the cameras that are in there right now, the WebEx system, and we didn't earmark any money.
Okay,
So they're not expecting to implement this July.
okay, okay.
What, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry,
They're
Darla.
not planning to implement this before July.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
You found the right one then.
I would entertain a motion for either approval or disapproval.
I would move to approve the courtroom technology upgrade MOU.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Knapper,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, discuss and consider chairman's signature on draft of MOU for the CDBG CV Grant Award for United Way. Final MOU will be resent upon funded, or when funded. What am I signing?
I don't know what that is, cause I
This
don't
one.
see the stuff. She doesn't provide me information.
and Amy's not gonna be here, and all I have is what she sent me in the email.
Okay,
This is the CDBG. Was it in the same? I don't
so
know.
nobody's here to discuss it, is that correct?
Correct.
I don't know.
I don't know how the rest of you feel. I would like some more information about it before we make any kind of
Who
decision.
even gave it to you?
I agree.
What's that?
I said, who even gave it to you?
I'm assuming, Amy, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would suggest or entertain that we table this, until such time that representative could be here to explain what everything's all about.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second to the
I'll
motion?
second that.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Okay, next item, discuss and consider approval of recommended personnel policy updates approved by the Personnel Board for sections 12410, 12430, 12600, continued from February 21st. Lisa?
I put the policy on the screen that we discussed last time, and this is where steps 1 through 5 in our pay scale includes an employee must get a favorable performance evaluation, and they would move a step every year. And then for steps 6 through 10, the movement on the pay scale is every other year. And it was proposed by the Personnel Board, proposed and approved, to bring to you that steps 6 through 10 be an annual increase rather than a biennial increase, and 11 through 13 be every 3 years rather than every 5 years to continue. And as I understood from your conversation 2 weeks ago, you were gonna discuss at this meeting what you would like to, that you don't, not that you disagree, but you wanted to discuss what you would like to push back down to the Personnel Board for consideration.
So, Mr. Tim, you're here to, yeah, go ahead. So Tim's the county employee representative to the Personnel Policy Board.
Correct, and I wasn't able to make the last meeting, so, part of the reason that we did this is, we wanna look at being able to retain employees a little bit better, you know, give a better picture for them. When you do every other year, sometimes, you know, you're gonna train somebody for 3 years, they're gonna work for 5, and they take what we've trained them with and leave, and then you start over your training again. You know, with somebody new, that's a possibility. And the other thing is when you go between steps 1 through 5, you know, your 2.5% increases every year. Between 6 and 7, it's still only 2.5%, only you're given 2 years of your time for that. Instead of, you know, so you're waiting 2 years to get your step increase. And, you know, it was brought to my attention that employees would be favorable to having something done differently to try and retain staff, you know. We want people to work here for 10, 15 years, have a long-term career, not 5 years and move on and just have to keep retraining. And I'll just give you some of my personal experience. My last job when I worked over in Wyoming, we had a 2-year revolving door. We get new people every 2 years, they get the training and then they would leave. Honestly, with that job, you worked yourself out of a job anyway, so it was part of the thing, but they'd come to us just to get the training, get their foot in the door. I'd like not to see that here. I'd like to see people want to come and be here for 10, 15 years long-term, you know. And, this may help with that, is what we're looking at, so. And as a board, we did have a good discussion on this. So, that's just all I wanted to add to it.
So let me be sure I understand, when we, at our last meeting, we discussed this, discussed some of the things, I know our vote was 3-2, I think. I think Mr. Meyer and Mr. Blue was in favor of approving it the way you had presented it. But 3 of us weren't, and so we talked about that, and so from that discussion, Lisa, then we come up with this, is that right?
No,
This was the same.
this is what we brought you. We didn't really have a counterpoint. It was tabled until this meeting, when you could bring your thoughts to the table today. That's how I recall.
Can we go through all 3
You
items
never made
before
a
we
decision.
discuss any of them? Can we just go through those, or?
All 3 items.
Well, you
Can I
have 3
say that-
different policies here.
Oh, yeah. Then
I
I
think
roll
it was
on
the
down.
second policy, the one I was concerned with.
Well, there were 3 specific things on the agenda the last time.
And
We
you,
approved 2 of them.
There were 4 things and you
Four.
approved 3.
3, and there was 1 left,
You-
and that's this.
That's
That
the-
is this, because we never had a motion made that passed either last meeting.
Okay, so it was this
Well-
item, that's all.
But it is
That's
this
all it
item
was.
that we're revisiting.
And yeah, when you see different, policy numbers, then flowing on down length of service, again, it says for grade step through 10, it's,
So it's basically saying the same thing,
Basi-
it's just in a different.
yes, it's just in a different part of the same policy. And then I think at the end, I was proposing to just remove a piece that applied to years before, and yeah, said our pay scale went to 10 previously, now goes to 13. So the big talking point is this first paragraph. And
So, Kelly, are you suggesting there was no motion of any kind on this item?
There was not a motion made that passed. You made a motion, there was a motion to table, there was a motion to approve that failed, and there was never a motion made to disapprove it. But you also asked me to put it on this meeting, so I dropped it.
Well, I thought there was a motion that failed.
There was.
There is,
Both of
there
them
was
failed.
never
There's 2 that
a
failed.
motion that passed.
I know.
So this didn't pass, that's why we're
This is
talking
not
about it.
passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it never passed, so it's on the agenda
correct?
again.
This this part needs to be discussed.
So you mean, if we have a motion on any of these items and we vote no, and it doesn't pass, then we just keep bringing it up,
No,
meeting after meeting?
No, we gave it back, we gave it back to Lisa to review, for us to review again with the modification.
That was my understanding, is
Yeah.
it was not done.
Mr. Reisig requested it be put on this meeting again so that you
No,
guys
that's
could
what
investigate
My
it.
motion failed. I made a motion to
Right,
table.
but you asked
and
that
it
it be
failed.
put on today's
now it's here
meeting
anyway.
so that you could ask more
Agreed.
questions about this.
So what we would need is a motion to deny their request.
Well, before we do that, I'd like to interject my comments. Retention in the workplace is a really serious issue, not only for the county, but our community as a whole. I have friends of mine that own businesses, and they say it's a real struggle. And a lot of times they end up hiring individuals, and they spend a very lengthy amount of time and a lot of money training people, only to lose them. And in reviewing this and being familiar with the different departments of the county, one of our major problems in the county is retention of good employees.
Hey, Mike, stay up
Okay.
there.
Is the retention of good employees. And there's also a motivation factor. You know, if they know that they have to perform to certain standards in order to get that pay increase, they're gonna do it. If not, you don't want them anyway. So this here is hopefully helping to solve the retention issue. And then there's the cost of training. It costs hundreds and thousands of dollars to train an individual for a position. For example, the detention center. In my personal opinion, after working there about 10 years, it takes about 2 years of constant training to get a functional corrections officer, one that you can depend on. Same with the assessor's office, treasurer's office. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of deadlines, a lot of really important stuff that has to be accurate. And so if you spend your time every 2 years training new people, you're not getting that efficiency. And that's another thing, is if we retain these employees, we're gonna have much more efficient operations, and we're gonna perform better in the public. When the public comes in here, they expect courteous and efficient service. And if you have a lot of new people constantly in your department, they're not gonna be as efficient. And I've been in lines when there's been people that's new on the job, and it's a struggle, and it causes the customer to sit there and wait. And we don't want that. But I really feel that this is really not an overreach from the employee's point of view. I think they're really making an honest effort to tell us what they'd like to see, and I'm all for it. I think anything we can do to retain good employees, it saves the taxpayers a lot of money. And I'm really big on training, but training costs money. So I really feel that the board has done a good job of presenting a very workable solution. And you know, and kind of a side thing is the relationship within the county is not good. And I think we need to show that we do appreciate our department heads and our employees that do a good job every day. And I think this is a very simple way to say we appreciate you. And it ain't gonna cost us a lot of money. And then in return, we expect department heads to be fair and honest in their evaluations, which I have no doubt. I trust our department heads, whether they're elected or appointed. I feel personally that you guys know your job, and you're very capable of providing accurate job reviews for your employees. So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mike.
Let me
Just,
ask Mike a question. What do you
Sure.
think about 12 holidays, paid holidays?
I have no issue with that.
Well, you wouldn't.
Especially-
You know what,
all right.
I'm not,
Where
I'm asking.
the last one is a floating one, it doesn't cause any problem with the
I mean,
departments.
Okay,
I
can-
would like you to look at it against a private individual. How many holidays do we give?
I tell you what, I come from a background where I had 30 days vacation a year and probably at least 12 holidays.
Okay, just a point of clarification on our discussion prior to Commissioner Blue speaking. This is as per the minutes that we approved. It was motioned by Reisig, second by Harris, to table Personnel Policy 12.410 pay increase section 12.430, 12.600. Yeas were Reisig and Harris, nays were Blue, Meyer, and Knapper. The motion failed. We had a motion from Blue, seconded by Meyer, approve Personnel Policy 12.410 pay increase section, same sections 12.430, 12.600. Commissioner Knapper gave recommendation to send back to the Personnel Board. Yeas were Blue and Meyer, nays were Harris, Knapper, and Reisig. So that this particular thing basically failed at the last meeting by a 3-2 vote. We approved the other policy changes, but not the ones previously mentioned. So that's where we're at.
So I'm gonna kind of go back to what we went through when the idea of an additional holiday came up. The sentiment at that time was personnel board comes ask for something. We start, and that's the beginning of a negotiation. And there's no, what we did is we asked for a compromise. So we asked for something in return. And it got kind of contentious, because, well, for whatever reason. So I think that's where we need to be now. This is a suggestion from the personnel board, okay? I think we would, could find some common ground. We could pass what is suggested from the personnel board if they were open to other suggestions. And my other suggestion would be to make this, what is the wording on the, positive performance review or something like that? I would like to see some, can you highlight that wording?
Is it? Be completed by the employees. That was what we passed in December.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you were asking, what does it take to have a favorable
Yeah.
performance review? Confidence and value of concern.
I can't see, I don't know where it is.
Charlie, are you asking for a positive performance review, or where you're gonna?
Yeah, where's that wording in here? Where's that wording in here?
Value in the position evidenced by greater production, improved judgment, and or increased initiative. Recognition is granted by means of a performance increase in pay. In order to provide for orderly method of granting, positions have been assigned pay grades. Increases 1 step. Position are not satisfied or do not increase commensurate with this.
Up there sorry to interrupt, but under B, performance evaluations, without receipt of completed evaluation, the personal action form will not be
Is that what you were
approved
asking?
and signed.
Evaluation, they have to average 3.
You have to average a 3. I'm not sure.
3 out of all the categories in order to get considered.
Okay, so they have to average a 3. So 2 weeks ago, there was an elected official in the back of the room that said they work on those evaluations in such a way to make sure that their employee gets a raise. And so what I would like to see is, that there are stronger metrics on the evaluation that are not that don't necessarily come from that person's supervisor. So if we have excessive tardiness or excessive absences, they're not eligible for their raise. And I think that should be tracked by the HR department and not by the department head. That's my negotiation token.
And why wouldn't you trust the department head or the
Because-
elected official?
Because 2 weeks ago, there was an elected official sitting in that back row that told us, if they don't get this, then she's gonna then she would write her employee performance evaluations in such a way to make sure that they get their,
Okay, I was just clarifying that.
Right.
Yes,
Not a question.
Mark.
So, for the life of me, I don't know why we're talking about this tonight.
We really,
We had a motion and it failed. When it
Correct.
failed, it was over. And why we were bringing it back,
I
I
tried
have
to
no
bring it
idea.
back.
We tried to table it and didn't.
I couldn't
That
get it ta-
failed
I
as
couldn't get it
well.
tabled.
that's right.
And so the motion failed.
Okay.
And I believe part of the discussion was, it's the personnel board's responsibility to bring something to us that we can, 3 people agree upon. And why it's back here, I don't know, and I'd be,
Was I not asked to put it on the agenda for today?
We can bring it on the agenda, it's here.
I understood it was supposed to come back because
I
we
tried,
were-
I tried to get it
Okay.
brought back and tabled, but I don't understand, it's not tabled and I don't understand.
You
How-
asked
both
me
of-
to
both
put
of
it on
those
for
failed.
today,
It failed.
and you-
Both of those failed, so
didn't even
conceivably,
put it on for today.
that particular portion of this is like it was before it even came to us.
It
Everything goes
died.
back, it died.
Well,
it
being-
died.
So in order for us to take any more action, it needs to go to the personnel board
Personnel board.
with a recommendation back to us. Now, we're free to make suggestions on what needs to be in that. That makes it more favorable for us to get those 3 votes or 5 votes or 4, whatever it is.
it
Well,
was,
being it's here, I have one thing I'd like to, if you're gonna take it back and look at it. I always felt, talking to Lisa and to Steve, you know, our employees that have been here 10, 15, 20, and 30 years, there's a big gap in there that there's no compensation increases for those good employees that have been here 20, 25 years. If you're gonna look at anything, why don't you guys try to help those guys?
we did. I mean, I added steps 11, 12, and 13
Okay, what is
within
that?
the
How
year.
far?
Within the year, and it's not good enough to give it every 5 years. Now we are trying to get it every 3.
It's
So,
it's
yeah.
1 year from step 1 to step 11, right? According to what we have up
What
here.
we had,
Yeah.
but he's asking
I'm
for
not-
those
well, I-
longevity.
Something
I guess
longer,
I don't,
gotcha.
without a step here, I don't know what steps it. I just wanna
Okay.
be sure that.
It's all right,
When
yeah.
you're covering it, you
Yeah.
guys are covering the older employees.
Okay,
so
well,
basi-
if it failed, it failed.
So basically where we're at is it failed.
It was-
We,
it
and
was
until we get
totally
a
my
recommendation
misunderstanding.
back from the personnel board with whatever changes or suggestions that may come from this board, then we'll act on it again.
That's fine, I just have one parting thought, is that any thoughts that any of you have, you can send it to personnel board or come to the next meeting, whatever it might be, so that we
I think that's a great idea.
address it.
It's a good idea, Tim.
I think all of us would have an interest in being at the personnel board, but in my opinion, only 2
It's
can
only
be there.
2 can be
It's a
there.
it's a put in the paper, it's a published meeting.
As long as you're not voting members, you can all be there.
Well, they come up to question, Kurt, to be honest with you, because there were 3 of us at one of the meetings and we got called for it.
We can't even go to a restaurant, 3 of us. and
Yeah.
eat.
We understand that we learned clarification at last fall's NERMA meeting that said if it's published and you're not a voting member,
Yeah,
you can
and
be there.
you're not voting on anything.
I
You're
understand
you're
the public
certainly
watches.
welcome to give your input on suggestions, and I would suggest that. If we can do all of that legally, and I'm thinking that we probably can, as long as we're not voting, it's a published meeting. If all 5 of us show up, I'm gonna be there, cause I'm on the committee. So if anybody else that wanted to come and offer suggestions to work this out so that we could bring the whole thing back to the entire board at a meeting and vote on it.
Well, my suggestion would be to use email if you can, so we can look at it beforehand, you know, if we have to, we can discuss what.
We gotta be careful doing that also.
Well, no,
We got
each one of you can send it.
send it individually, not as a group. That's correct.
Well, thanks, I know this wasn't supposed to be on there, but thanks for letting me talk to you.
Okay.
One more comment, just before we go, is this is, so far this year, we've added steps to the pay scale. We've had a request to add an additional holiday. We had a request for raises. And is there anything else I'm missing? Is there a fourth item that the personnel board has come to ask for?
Where did the request for raises
The
come from?
personnel board did not bring that to you. What?
When did we decide to, why did we decide to do the,
The salary array?
but
Because
why, but
I
what
brought
was
it
the-
to-
what- Okay, sorry. What was the reason for,
Well, I think at that time, there was talk about raises and how much were the raises gonna be. And it was part of maybe at the budget time even, and I just said, let's get a disinterested third party to give us their opinion.
was that when the 8% suggestion came out?
I think there was a high percent suggested, and I think, that's when I said we ought to
So I'll-
hire someone like Esmond to look at it.
So I'll clarify that, the personnel board did not ask for that 8% raise, that came from.
That was adjustment
another-
on the
That
salaries.
was, yeah, that was a different.
Thing to consider, you spent that under the wage study, and if you're only doing 2.5% every other year, you gotta put yourself back by the 8 million. Being wait time, your contemporaries. Just as we go forward.
Well, it's a
It's like
COLA,
wasting money on an
it's a
engineer and
COLA
architect,
plus
so it
2.5%.
gotta be done.
So it's not just 2.5%. It's a COLA plus that.
The adjustments via the survey.
Yeah,
Right.
plus the fact that many got raised
Right.
more than that because of the survey.
Right. So there was some adjustments that did not come through the personnel board, that was done through this board.
Again, when they get to the higher tiers, if you're only doing a raise every other year, it's 2.5%, you could well find yourself waiting time.
But that's one of the things that needs to be discussed. And I think an attempt was made to do that, but it failed. So we need to go back to the drawing board. Okay. Clear, Tim? You have your marching orders? Okay. And until we hear differently that we cannot attend, I would suggest anybody who'd like to come to the meeting to come and put your 2 cents worth in. And then we'll put something together that may be desirable and something that we can get through this board and get it finished. How's that? Okay? Very good. All right, thank you. Moving on to Road and Bridge. Mr. Baird, how are you this evening?
Waiting for the snow.
Okay, I received the NDOT bridge match agreement form. It's reads word for the last 7 bridge matches outside of the bridge number has changed in the deadline. The deadline for this one is December 31st, 2026. So, is what we need for this. First is, there's a resolution for all the commissioners approving the chairman's signature on the agreement, and then we have to approve the agreement itself.
Is this on County Road?
This is on County Road M, just east of 31.
The 9 Mile Creek one.
Yes, yeah. On this one, the state is looking to put up 250,000, where on County Road 5 bridge, it's only 200,000. I guess I shouldn't say only, but it's 200,000.
Have you got an estimate on that total, Joe?
On which one?
On this, you got a total estimate on this project?
For M,
Yes.
it was in the 480 range, but that's
Now
probably
it's
gonna go up
500.
a little bit now, just
Yeah.
because of the bridge match. We have some different hoops we have to go through to meet the NDOT specs. So now there has to be a hydraulic study and, a couple other things done. But the plans are pretty well almost, and they're in the preliminary stage, so as soon as they get that done, this engineering side of this should take near as long as what the County Road 5 is taking, so.
This is 521,000 estimated costs, so.
Right, I
That's
did
in
the
the
high
neighborhood.
side,
Right.
cause they gave me 3 options.
Sure, and
Steve
that's good.
Lewis, the engineer's working on that, so
Right.
that's what I put that in there as, is the
Hope it might
third
be less.
option, the elite option, if you wanna call it that. Right now, we're going, unless NDOT changes it, we're going with the second option, which is 1 new pier, and then it'll have concrete deck on top of it. And it'll be, I believe it's gonna be 2 foot wider too. It'll be 28.6 instead of 26. So,
So what is the first motion that you need?
the first motion is the commissioners approving the resolution for the chairman's signature on the agreement.
And that's this resolution on the next to the back page.
Resolution, I can read it to you if you
I move approval of the resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Harris,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Isn't that money already in this 2022, 23 budget right now? Or 21, 22?
There was 350 in there for this, but this project won't be done in this fiscal year, so
It'll carry over, won't it?
right, but after this winter, there probably won't be.
You're gonna use
much-
some of that, right?
Much to carry over the way winter's going.
Okay, next item is discuss and consider the agreement with NDOT on the county bridge match.
I move approval of the program agreement for project number STWD-CVMP 7.
There's your motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Harris,
Yes.
Knapper,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Reisig,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Okay, and you've got a road update for us, Steve?
Yes, I just thought after the last, on this one coming around, all the commissioners sign that, and then the one in the front is just. After, the individual come in last week with his concerns about the roads, I just thought I'd go over some things quick. All the concerns he brought up, you know, we're not denying that the crowns are bad and that the gravel's been gone. You know, all his concerns he brought up are long-term fixes. I mean, all that just didn't happen in the last 3 to 5 years. This is just weather events, for maintaining high winds, higher traffic, loaded trucks. You know, it's gonna take, you know, years to work on this and get these back. It's not a short-term, be done in a month fix that he had brought up, so. I wanna go back to December. Of course, everybody knows the blizzard back then, and, you know, we made it through that snow. First blizzard in December, pretty decent shape equipment wise. We were pretty good. After that, we had, what, a 4-inch snow, and I think we had some rain one night, and then we had 10 inches of snow. And then we had that high wind for a day, full 24 hours of 40, 50-mile-an-hour winds. That plugged all our roads just right back up, tighter and deeper than what they were for the blizzard. That's where we kinda ran into a buzzsaw. We had probably 5 machines go down on us. A lot of circle issues. Actually broke a ring on a circle. I mean, split it in half. I've never seen that before. Some pinion gears on circles going out, trying to widen out the roads. You know, some injectors, a loader went down. Some pretty healthy repairs in this last time frame. So we had 4 or 5 machines down here this last month trying to get things up and going. They're all up but one that has a circle, but they're all up and going now.
Was that handled in shop, or do we have to send them out?
Actually, a majority of this was handled in the shop by our new mechanic. He was able to put the injectors
Wow.
in the machine. He did the circle gearbox. He actually, did an arms on it, replaced the arms on a circle that went bad. Actually did stuff I didn't, honestly, when I put him on, didn't know he could do, I guess, and he's doing this stuff great.
He replaced some injectors on another machine for
Yeah.
Steve that he didn't think he could do, so he's actually doing things that
Yeah,
we'd
he's
be
actually
spending
doing
a
stuff
lot
that
of.
we would normally take to
Not a bad
to
idea
Murphy,
then, was it?
you know, and have done and be paying $160 an hour shop rates. Which
He's well earning his money, isn't he?
kills our labor, you know, for the year in our budget. The circle that broke, he actually took it off, and we had a guy that thinks he could pull it back together and get it welded and re-put the teeth on. So that's what we're trying, because a new one of those is $26,000. So we're hoping this works. If not, we may not have a choice, but we're hoping that it works.
This is western Nebraska. That's how we fix things.
That's right.
Baling, twine, and welder. Yeah, we got her done.
The trucks through all this have made it, pretty much unscathed. A few issues with the sensor here and there on transmissions with them, but, you know, they've made it through all the storms so far in pretty decent shape.
Thank all your staff. I
got
think we
some
did
good
once.
boys there, yeah.
They were out in some pretty tough weather.
Yeah, they're not in too good spirits now with weather this week.
Well, it's not here yet, so we'll see.
You know, we've spent 60% of our overtime budget so far as of this month, so to this month. 60% of it, in years past, we've spent maybe 20% of it, so, hopefully this doesn't turn out too bad, because we still got 4 months to go here to the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
As far as like after the storm, the road messes out there, you know, we have snow, well, this last few days has helped a bit. When it first started, we had snow piled beside the roads, taller than what this ceiling is in there, you know, melting on the roads. Nowhere to go with it, so I know everybody's probably received complaints about the muddy roads, and, you know, there's just not a lot we can do with it at this point. Here this last week, it's really melted them down good. So I think, I can almost say, I think 100% of them, they're all pushed back enough that they're not melting on the roads as of probably the end of last week anyway. We do have an issue with driveways melting out now. Driveways that sit up higher up County Road, their snow's melting out, go running down the middle of the county road. We put cuts at the edge of their driveway to keep that water over there and try to get in the ditch instead of ruining the county road. So they get a complaint about that, well, that's why it's there, so. Like I said, the ruts were a huge issue. I know everybody was calling. I don't know if they called you enough. I had about every person I talked to tell me they were gonna call the commissioner about the ruts. So we're doing what we can, you know, right now. You would think the frost would be out of the roads with the ruts, but it's not. So we've been going out trying to smooth off what we can until, you know, the ditches melt out. We can pull our shoulders, get our gravel back, and actually start doing something with them. So it's just gonna be kind of a work in progress with those. I guess, you know, that's pretty much it. Our new truck did come in, so got it today, so after a year and a half wait, so.
Can you
And-
use it right now?
Yeah,
You can, it can go out,
Yep,
cause I was
you
asked to put on insurance and I didn't know.
as long as you put it on the insurance. Yeah, we come out and put decals on it today, this afternoon, Whiting Science here, put the decals on it, so they should be ready to go. We probably won't send it out first thing in the morning, cause it's a little different, probably wait till daylight hours, and that way the operator can see a little more of everything in there, cause it's a little more computerized.
Everybody has it.
So he can
on?
get more familiar with it. So,
Steve?
and the other thing is our, bridge foreman is now certified as a welder, so.
That's great.
And he did welding on the bridges.
Good deal.
That didn't take long.
No, last Friday he did.
But it's good to
so.
have them. Have 'em there, yeah. The other thing we talked about, you and I and Ken talked about the other day was, looking into a snow blower. We've got situations out there where that snow is pushed so high, they have nowhere to go with it, and then it just sits there and runs and leaks on the roads, and, you know, it just melts, and there's nowhere to go. They've got places, in certain places, we really need to get a snow blower, is what we really need. They had one years ago, it's been sold and gone.
Yeah, it didn't even run at the time.
What's that?
It was like a 1974.
Yeah, but anyway, they had one, but we need to replace that and get one back in here for these guys, cause they've got roads in these canyons and places where this stuff drifts so bad that there's nowhere to go with that snow but up and over and out, cause those runways, you can't push it far enough, you can't push it sideways, it's gotta go up and over.
Right.
Does that snow blower only work on pavement, or can you
No,
use
you
it on
can use them on
dirt?
gravel. Yeah, you just would have to leave them
Up a little.
hydraulically, leave them up a little bit. I have done some checking and, reached out to a few places, you know, actually got brand new ones are probably gonna be way out of the question, cause they're $800,000 on them today.
That's kinda out of the question.
Yeah, so maybe and that's a self-contained truck one that has its own engine on the back of it for the snow blower up front that you actually drive. You know, there are the options of the loader mounted ones. I found out today that you can actually mount them on front of the motor grader on the boulders and hitch of the motor grader too, they can make them that way. And throw them out. So, those new are $180,000.
I'd like to see us go to a truck mounted.
So you'd save that in time and equipment and everything else, Steve. I think we
Yeah.
talked about that. Yeah.
So, there are used ones out there. I have, calls in. McQueen is a huge dealer for snow blowers. That's where the city of Gearing got theirs from, and some other, the airport, that's where they get theirs from. Usually they can get some used ones in here and there, but with this winter this year, yeah, they don't have any. Everybody's taking them.
Are you talking about trying to buy something now or after budget?
I'm before next winter.
Before next winter, just after next year's budget,
Right.
and not this
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, I don't have enough in this year's budget the way it's going with winter and that I'd be able to purchase that.
Well, I think
anyway.
make it part of your budget process.
Absolutely.
But,
I'd
yeah,
like to
it would
see
be
one.
something for next winter to go into.
Steve's reaching out and trying to get something located so we can get a number put together
Right.
at least. I'd like
So
to see
you
him
know.
get it in a budget.
You know, ideally it'd be nice to have one for each shop than one machine trying to cover 800 miles, but depends on what you can get for a price, and if you can find, the used ones, if you want the loader mount, you put on steels, you can get those for 80,000 if I can get used one, the guy says.
But you can't get it anywhere. You can't, he'll have no coverage on 800 miles of road. You gotta load that up, haul that loader to the next area.
And the ones we're talking about are movable, they're
Right,
roadable.
The truck ones, you actually just drive 50,
Just
55 down the highway, and you can go set up where you want, start the engine, set it down, and load. So, but like I said, they're gonna be quite a bit.
I think it'd be very cost efficient to do it, that, to be honest with you, but we can talk about that at budget time. Steve, thank you so much. Again, thank all the team.
Real quick, I just got two things. You remember during irrigation season last year when that bar ditch overflowed and ran across 25 between Lake Minnetonka Road and County Road?
Okay, I think so, yeah.
And we talked about possibly locating, because I guess the bar ditch doesn't go deep enough because there's a cable under there. We talked about possibly locating that cable and getting it moved so we could dig that bar ditch a little deeper. The homeowner, the landowner over there just said that happens every single year when his wastewater is running, it's always running over the road there.
And I believe isn't there like a berm on the west side, and it has to run down through his berm, and then goes under the canal, or through the culvert there, okay.
But if we could get that cable located, moved, or at least located so we could divert the water instead of going across the road there.
Right.
And then I
Okay.
did have one complaint on 28 between Jay and Highland, there's snow piled still on the road, just saturating that little spot there. I know you mentioned you thought all the snow was off the road, I think this might be the one spot in the county where it's
So there's
not.
quite a few spots that are in my yard.
But overall,
Is it just on the edge? I don't think they're actually going out, they're the outside 2 foot, it might be mounted on, but you got the rest of the road that isn't running down the middle, I guess is what I'm.
yeah, I could shoot you.
So County Road 28, that takes you up to Lake Minnetonka School, right?
Yeah, this is the picture if you wanna see it. This is the picture I got today.
But yeah. Okay. Is that just something that's right on the north side?
Oh, yeah, they do a good job.
I'm not sure exactly where it is.
What do you have to
Okay.
work
But
with?
it's on 28, somewhere between Highland and Jay.
Yeah, there's still some out there, I'm sure, but I think for the most part, that's a short stretch right there, what is that, 20 foot it looks like?
Yeah.
We've had stretches going for 2 miles down the road, down the hill, all 2 miles, maybe 27, from Highland North, it's all up hills, and the snow was all piled there, just running there. Tough to do anything with it till it got melted down enough, we could finally get up there, I think it was early last week, and use the loader and try pushing it back more, and try to straighten that up, but yeah, the running there was just terrible. So, there might be some, I'm gonna call that a minimal one to some.
That's very minimal.
So,
Um,
yeah.
and then, what can I tell guys that get these phone calls again about the windrows? Why do we have them? And can we train the guys to not create windrows? Or how is, just,
So, the windrows, like, for like next winter, I'm gonna change that, cause usually we leave them on year round. Next year, we're gonna knock them off, because at the end of the winter, we have to go clean up our shoulders, our bar ditches anyway. It seems like this winter with all the snow, of course, we haven't had snow like this for years, that it's causing a hindrance on the outside of getting it plowed off, so it really melts and makes that side soft.
Yep.
So going into next winter, I'm gonna tell everybody to knock them off. As far as during the spring and summer, we have them there, just because once the irrigation water and all the drain water starts getting into the ditches, then we need to pull up material on our retrieve gravel. We can't, because what we're gonna do is pull up mud.
okay,
And then once you get the mud pulled up there, you're gonna carry that mud and leave mud all over the road, and then you're gonna get calls about, the grader went through and just left mud all over the road. Are there roads we have that don't have that irrigation wastewater that maybe we could knock the windrows off? I'm sure that, yeah, there's some out there. But ideally, we leave them in the spring and summer because of the irrigation running, because we have no way. Take
Again, thank you. Pass it on to the crew. At this time, we'll take, public comments. Before we start, I'd like to introduce Todd Van Kampen. I don't know whether everybody knows him. Are you going to be our regular reporter, Todd?
Oh, I'm sorry. The people in Lincoln County would probably get to me before you would, because that's where my normal base is.
Yeah.
Just wasn't expecting to do this in person. But, long story short, I, used to work at the Star Herald from 91 to 95, and I covered this very board back in the days of, Roger Green, John McClellan, and Clint Morrison. Ms. Ryan, I covered the very first management accountant appointment, when Jim Sidebottom took the post. Vera Delaney was a great person to know. Her son, had gone, Dan had gone to school with me at J School at UNL. And Les Duggar was the county assessor. I really appreciated how he wasn't afraid of computers, even at his advanced age. I covered Lincoln County for the Telegraph before I came here, and I've covered that, covered them from time to time ever since. I'm here tonight because my wife Joan, who was appointed in March to be last March to be editor of the Star Herald as well as the Telegraph, where we've been again since 2016, ran out of reporters. I'm not going to go through the reasons why, but because I already know this place and this board. She asked me to cover this tonight and the Gearing School Board last night. And you should know that the North Platte City Council is having to do without me sitting there because you're meeting at the same time. So it's been kind of a blast from the past tonight. So not saying that couldn't end up being the substitute some time down the road again, but at least I'm here tonight, and it's good to get to meet Ken and Mark again, because I do remember them from their roles with the Scotts Bluff School Board and then the Scotts Bluff City Council in the past. So,
Was that 90, was it
91
90
to 95.
I really, but what was the year we remodeled the Star Herald? Was that
Remodel
90
which place, I'm sorry?
Star
The
Herald.
remodel when
The
we
Star
were-
Herald?
yeah.
That was right after. They were just preparing to do that when we left
Wasn't
to
that
go back
90?
to North Platte.
Wasn't that 91 or 92?
No, it was more like
About
95.
96, yeah.
And in 96, the Star Herald was still in their temporary quarters the night the sugar factory exploded. Somehow I was here for that. We were visiting my in-laws, and the Olympics had just ended at 10 o'clock, and all of a sudden this huge boom. And I ended up running out and helping the Star Herald that night too. So seems like I keep coming back. But my parents and my mother-in-law still live here. And so we've always been following the community once, twice a year usually, coming back. So, you know.
Well, welcome. You're welcome back anytime.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Is there anybody, I skipped over old business because we don't have any.
Okay, I wanted to verify that.
What's that?
I wanted to ask you, thank you.
Yeah, there isn't any old business to discuss. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to the board at this time? Anybody?
After.
Okay, if not, we'll move on to board and staff reports. We'll start with the board. Russ?
Well, Steve pretty well covered everything that I wanted to talk about as far as the road and bridge, and I think they're doing everything they can do. I mean, they finally got the machines back up and running, and so we're ready for the next storm.
Okay. Mike, you have anything?
Nothing.
No, it was a busy week for meetings for me, but lots of meetings, lots of different meetings. I was elected chairman of the aging office board, so I get to run another meeting. Pretty tickled about that. Sat through the Panhandle Health District meeting. They're in the process of purchasing the building that they've been leasing up in Harrison. And that's through some ARPA funds. So they've got a realtor working with them, and they're trying to get that all negotiated. So a lot of good things happening with that particular board. I think that's about it. That's all I've got for right now.
Charlie?
I don't have anything.
Charlie, you have anything?
Yeah, I went to TCD recently. I conveyed to them this board's enthusiasm for Kelly Stray's presidential year platform of focusing less on housing and focusing more on business recruitment, retention, and building. Kelly was really thankful for the comments. Todd Lewis also said, thanks for the comments. And I suggested, because that was the second TCD meeting I had been to, and again, 90% of the meeting is spent on housing. And so at my second meeting, I suggested, what if there was a committee that worked on housing, just made a short 2 or 3 minute report on housing, and then the rest of the meeting could be used on, the business retention and recruitment piece that we so very much desire, and that was pretty well received. So, and then I went to the PAD meeting, my first PAD meeting, really short. Had pizza for lunch, but some good networking there. Talked with the Gearing folks, talked with the city of Scotts Bluff folks, that kind of stuff. So, I think all we did during that meeting was treasure report, financial statements, that kind of thing. Nothing really big to report out of PAD. County tourism is gearing up for another tourism season. Still working very closely with Huddle Up, the sports they do consultant work for youth sports tourism, and so they'll be coming to the area here in March to tour the area, do site visits at our facilities, and then they're going to put together a comprehensive plan for us moving forward. And I think that's it. Oh, we have our not NACO, but Panhandle District Association meeting coming up in March 29th.
Yes.
Okay. You can register on the NACO website. Super simple way to register. But if you're not great with computers, Kelly can get you registered. Right, Kelly? But that is, Box Butte County is the host, but they're having it here at the Civic Center. And so it's here in town, super easy to get to. NACO continues to work on the legislative session, taking position on bills, lobbying on behalf of counties, and I think we're doing a pretty good job there. So that's been a lot of fun and very informative. One thing that may affect us is the way they value ag land, going from a market value to an income approach. That could, we rely heavily on ag values, ag land values, and if it goes to an income approach, it could make us have to tighten our belt considerably.
That's Erdman's priority bill, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So, just some things to keep an eye on. If we need to take positions on bills, or if there's any bills that you would like to take positions on, let me know. I can forward those comments on to NACO. I think that's it.
Okay, any staff? Anybody have anything? I think you gave us a pretty good effort on the legislation. I've made an attempt to watch. Spend 2 days to confirm a volunteer appointment is just amazing. Just amazing, but that's okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to hold an executive session to consider personnel matters which require closed session discussion in order to prevent needless injury to the person involved. And in that session will be the board and Lisa. I just need one motion.
I will move to move into executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll.
Knapper,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes. Moving to executive session at 7:01. Oh, is that, did he? I missed,
The ag land bill.
here's what's going on my cable. I have Owl, and I have it so that it tapes all the time automatically, except that on channel 11, there's another program. And if it's not on the guide,
It doesn't take, well, and I don't have time to sit during the day and
And now I gotta get the audio going.
a lot of work for what we're gonna do here. Everybody back?
Nope,
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie's not here.
We'll back to the regular session at 7:59. Call the roll, please.
Meyer,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Knapper, Reisig,
Yes.
Blue,
Yes.
Okay, being no business, we're adjourned.